I am aware.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys and your shout outs and your love. Yeah, we are very happy. Kurt, if you're listening, love you. I'm here to talk about hemp-derived Delta-9. I know it's a topic that we all know and love so much, especially Stone down there in
Stone's
Texas.
favorite. Yeah.
Come on.
So I Now, in my home state of Wisconsin, the hemp-derived cannabinoid market is massive, and so I decided to write a little piece for Green State, breaking it down. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and just paraphrase it. Essentially, with the legality and access to cannabis dramatically varying from state to state, people have decided to be innovative, I suppose, and try to come up with products that can appease the masses while also falling in line with federal regulation. Hemp-derived Delta-9 THC has been gaining traction throughout America. Depending on where you live, Delta-9 products like drinks, gummies, and vapes are readily available in smoke shops, gas stations, and even liquor stores. The cannabinoid technically is just like the THC you buy at a dispensary in a legal state. The only difference is it comes from hemp plants instead of cannabis plants. And people may wonder, how is this legal? Which is a valid question. After all, marijuana remains illegal on the federal level, and markets with regulated cannabis can only sell THC products through a licensed retailer. And just like THCA flower, which we discussed before, it all comes down to semantics. So as we all know, Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, is the compound in cannabis responsible for its psychoactive effects, aka getting you high, and it is found in both marijuana and hemp, although the concentrations vary. And hemp-derived Delta-9 comes from hemp, obviously, and technically both are forms of cannabis, but the difference lies in the genetics and how the cannabinoid is produced. So the United States government defines hemp as cannabis plants containing less than 0.3% THC on a dry weight basis. Anything higher than that, and it's marijuana. The USDA set this definition in the 2018 Farm Bill, a federal law that officially legalized hemp nationwide. So, how is hemp derived Delta 9 made? So, since the THC concentrations are lower in hemp, it still exists though, and it can be extracted. THC is simply isolated after the extraction process, separating it from the more prevalent compounds like CBD. Some Delta 9 makers do opt for this method of production, but it's not the only game in town. The other way to create Delta 9 is through a process called isomerization. CBD, which is the cannabinoid prevalent in hemp, is turned into Delta 9 using a chemical process. This is also how compounds like Delta 8, Delta 10, and HHC are made. Both of these processes are commonly used in the hemp derived market, although isomerization is often considered more cost effective for large scale producers. And looking at any random Delta 9 product on the market, there's really no way to tell which production method was used since brands don't actually need to indicate it on their labels. Now, whether or not this is legal, technically, under the eyes of the federal government, the answer is yes, right? Since they only really care about the THC pre harvest and also the dry weight basis. So if you look at a drink or a gummy that has 25 milligrams of Delta 9 THC, how does it pass the test? Well, if you consider the weight of all the other components like sugars, water, pectin, other ingredients, THC is a drop in a bucket. But it's important to note that some states are moving to ban hemp derived cannabinoids that have intoxicating effects, especially if they're chemically created. The US government is expected to tackle this confusion head on when they review the Farm Bill, which could be any day now, but the outcome remains to be seen. And while hemp-based products are all the rage in prohibition states, they're also becoming more prevalent in legalized markets as well. Why would you want hemp-derived THC if you can freely access cannabis? It once again comes back to that accessibility conversation, since hemp-derived products are not subject to the same rules as traditional cannabis. They can be sold online or in unlicensed shops, increasing availability. In many states, Delta-9 is not subject to the same taxes as marijuana, meaning it could theoretically be less expensive than what you would find at the dispensary. However, a lack of regulation of these products is a cause for concern. Since the hemp-derived cannabinoid space has been lauded by consumers who are able to catch a buzz legally in places where they may not otherwise be able to, the market is highly unregulated and severely lacking consumer oversight. Now, this is interesting. A recent analysis of several unregulated Delta-9 THC products addressed these concerns. Of the 53 products tested, 2/3 had mislabeled potency, over 70% lacked proper impurity testing, around half of them were created through chemical conversion. The bottom line is there's just no way to tell precisely what's in the hemp-derived Delta products you buy at the gas station or online. The best way to determine legitimacy is by looking at a product's certificate of analysis, which showcases the testing results. If a COA is not available, that's a major red flag. And so while THC remains a controlled substance in the eyes of the government, hemp-derived Delta-9 is currently legal, but future legislation could change that. Meanwhile, the cannabinoid remains popular in states across the country, and while consumer safety concerns have some lawmakers alarmed, fans of the product are seemingly shaking their shoulders and shrugging their shoulders. It's safe to say the hemp-derived THC market was born out of necessity. If cannabis were legal nationwide, would people have sought out alternative ways to skirt the rules and create a way to get high legally? Maybe, maybe not. One thing is certain, a framework and path to regulation would likely increase product consistency and ensure consumers are getting what they paid for. So, I'm Rochelle Gordon. I'm the editor of Green State, reporting for High at 9. I already know what you guys all think about the hemp-derived cannabinoid market, but let's hear it.
Oh, she already knows where this is going. Well, let Dr. Mark Sheldon is said in the chat. He's saying that isomerization wins because of cost, saying you cannot determine converted from natural is simply not true.
But how? How do you determine that? Like, let's say you buy a drink or a gummy, it's not anywhere on the product. How does the consumer know how that product was created?
The consumer doesn't. In all reality, I mean, and in all fairness, there was just a big recall here in California on a number of SKUs that were using hemp-derived distillate. And so a lot of people can't. One of the traits to look for when you are looking at distillate is it'll have a much more amber reddish color tone to it if it has been converted.
Looking at the raw ingredients, that's one way to tell. Oh, sorry, Dale.
This all goes back to how stupid they were in coming up with these definitions for hemp. Because I mean, I keep remembering that they hired Joe Kennedy to clean up the stock market because he fucking manipulated it and made millions of dollars. They need to hire people who know how to manipulate these substances, then formulate rules and regulations to stop people from, getting in between the lines. If you know organic chemistry and you know how to do this, it's not difficult. There are pharmaceutical manufacturers and equipment out there that you can buy commercially to take hemp-derived CBD and change the pressure, the temperature, and put it in the place of chemicals and turn it into Delta-9 THC. Now, that's what they do. And no one thought about that going into this. This is just ignorant on the part of policymakers. I'm not sure they're going to get smart enough to figure it out going forward unless you hire people who do this to tell you how it's done. California says all isomers, anything that says THC, it's all banned unless you go through the cannabis industry. That's how they've attacked it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to fix this.
On one hand, you got to love the outlaw aspect of them finding a loophole and jumping through it. On the other hand, I've said it a million times, it pisses me off that hemp has jumped the line of cannabis, and we're this inferior product that's not regulated. It's out there. Really, I mean, it's mocking the federal government. It's mocking what we have for an industry by basically doing what the industry does without being regulated and without being tested. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rochelle, to answer your question, Dr. Mark just chimed in. He said that you can tell by HPLC testing with a lab in regards with those products.
Which is awesome, and I'm assuming that's what they did in that analysis that I referenced. But the issue is that a consumer's not going to do that, right? They're just going to buy it and and not ask questions. And so I think for their sake, but at the same time, do they really care? And this is something that I've been asking a lot of consumers. They're like, look, I've been buying weed from some dude my whole life. I never asked questions about it. Why would I start now? And that's fair.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe
People don't
No,
care.
it's not. It's not fair. And the sad thing is that I think that majority of Americans go to the grocery store and pick up items without even looking at what it is that they're purchasing and they're digesting. I just think that it's. I want to know what I'm smoking. So if I'm putting it in my body, I want to know what it is, and I think that people need to make. People need to be more conscientious about how they choose to medicate themselves. It's one thing to say, "Well, I'm doing this for medication," and you think you're medicating yourself, but then you're putting stuff in your body that could be potentially harming you.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. But, I mean, Stone, gotta love you some Delta-8, boy. Oh, yeah.
Get out of here. I'll tell you what, though, Jason, when I did come for Halloween, Jason had what he called the best Delta-8 in the world, and I took him for his word before it. I didn't smoke it, but Jason was puffing away.
I bet. And just by even saying that, everyone knows that you're totally full of BS. But it's okay. We still love you, Stone. And we love the great red state of Texas. You know the best part about being in Austin, Stone Slade?
Oh, man, this joke gets better every time I hear it. Go ahead, Jason.
You're surrounded by Texas.
Yes, I am. Yeah, my little purple spot here, surrounded by this red sea of rural Texas.
Yes. That's right.